And we are live. Yes, we are.
Here we are.
It always takes people a couple minutes to come into the room.
Yeah, I'm about to share it on our pages. Here we go.
Yes, please do.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
We're on YouTube and both of my Facebook pages. So, hi, they're coming in. We got some viewers.
Yes.
I'm singing today. I haven't even sung today. I got some music I should have looked at today. So.
I know how that is.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, Jim. That's Show Jim.
Hello.
Minneapolis. How are you?
Share. Okay, there. And then I need to share it on.
I'll just share what you share.
Akeem Brand. I should have tagged you.
Mm-hmm. Good evening. Good evening. It's so great to see everybody coming in. We got people coming in. Hi, Greg. How are you? The Combos crew is coming in. Happy Thursday, everybody. We made it to the end of the month. Can you believe it?
Take a rest. Yep.
I was counting the months. I was like, wow, we're actually almost halfway through the year.
Can you believe that? Like, how is it May this weekend? I know. Just like that.
I know. Hi, Dave Ragland. Composer Dave Ragland. Hi, Sue. How you doing?
Hola.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I can't even believe it. We are, was it a third of a way through the year? A third?
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh. Yes.
It's bananas.
Yeah. Hi, Martin. Combos crew from Scotland. Always holding it down.
Yes, he was with us last night too. That's wonderful.
Yes, Martin is one of my favorite people. Yes. Oh, thank you, Greg. Happy day. Well, this Thursday is a special Thursday we've been waiting for a long time. And I'm so happy and so honored to have this lovely panel of artists and humans here on Combos. Last night we did a wonderful panel for our UrbanArias, moderated by the lovely Ann Carolyn Bird, who will tell you all who she is very shortly. And it was a fantastic panel. I felt like we were just getting into it.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, when we had to end, but it's all on our pages and UrbanArias page. You guys can go and share that. But we are here to talk about DWB, Driving While Black, the opera written in 2018 by composer Susan Kander and the lovely, lovely soprano Roberta Gumble, who was the librettist of the piece. I remember Roberta being in my Facebook inbox, like, look at this, listen to this, tell me what you think about this. And I didn't really have an idea about what it was. Like, she sent me the beautiful lullaby, and she sent me another piece, and I was like, okay. Should give me some feedback. I said, I don't know what to say, you know, because again, as people will hear and see the movie as it premieres tomorrow at 5 o'clock. 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock starts streaming.
Yes, 5 o'clock tomorrow. That it's one of those things that you can't really explain. You have to see you have to hear the entire piece.
Yeah.
But I will read a little blurb of a review that Driving While Black got back in 2018 from the Best of Kansas City Theater. It says it's a chamber opera about racism, erasure, and the heady cocktail of fear and love Black parents feel when they send their kids out into a world that too often sees them not as a child, but a threat. Intentional and powerful in pinpointing and relating the terror, racial bias, and injustices called. Kander and Gumble created one of the most singularly devastating theatrical moments of last year, and that was from The Pitch, Kansas City's alternative newspaper for arts and culture. I think that very sums it up beautifully, this piece, but I want everyone to introduce themselves briefly. Hi, Joe, lovely Joe, fantastic collaborative pianist and artistic director, curator, all of the things. Thank you, Joe. But I'd love, I'd love for Bob, my lovely friend Bob Wood, to just introduce himself. Composer, conductor. Wow.
Bring it forth. Call it forward. Call it forward.
Well, that I did my senior project actually in high school was an opera composition, a scene from a novel that I planned out to set to music, and I think that has been fortunately burned, and no one will ever see it. But thank you, Karen, for that wonderful introduction. It is great to be here. It's a real honor to be on Kiki Convos. I was saying, this is like being at a very stylish after party. I feel like I've arrived. As Karen said, I'm a conductor. I've conducted all over the country. Karen and I got to know each other just a couple of years ago when she was a young artist at the Santa Fe Opera. I was on their music staff. This was before I became the chorus master. And we coached, and she was in Electra. And that was a situation where some of your viewers might remember John Crosby, who was having a pissing match with John Copley, the director, and so attended 0 rehearsals. So I conducted them all, which was a great opportunity, and I really enjoyed it. Mary Jane Johnson as Electra, and Force of Nature, Judith Forst as Clytemnestra. She was amazing. So a few years later, I founded an opera company in Arlington, Virginia, near DC, called UrbanArias. Our gimmick is that we only do short work, so 90 minutes or less. We do chamber operas and only new work, so stuff written within the last 20 years. I mean, basically 21st century stuff. And we're collaborating on this wonderful piece called DWB, Driving While Black. And Amy Hutchinson, I see you. Yes, you remember these people too. And so that's me.
Mute myself. Yes, fantastic. And Bob started UrbanArias a number of years ago, and I'm always pulling this coattail, like, now you invite me. You should have been inviting me before to sing, but it's all good. It's all good. And Carolyn Bird, please introduce yourself.
Hi. So I'm Anne Carolyn Bird. Currently, most recently, the executive director of UrbanArias, a position that was new to the company just about, what are we at, 5 months, 6 months now? Bob decided it was time to grow a little bit and get some help in making all this amazing art happen. And it was just the right time for me to kind of take a step up. Going back before that, I was a professional opera singer myself for about 15 years. Sang at the Metropolitan Opera for 10 seasons and around the country and a few international gigs as well. Met my husband on a gig, Susanna and Figaro, just like so cute. And he is still singing. He's off on a gig right now. And when we had kids, after we had our second child, and then lived on the road, gigging for 14 months with a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old, at that point, I thought, I think I might be done with the performing side of this. Time to see what's next. And from there, I moved into, decided to step away from performing completely and moved into administration, worked at Virginia Opera for a year, worked at Washington National Opera here in DC for 3 years. And then I just kind of was like gathering all the knowledge and all the skills possible. And then that plus my performance background and love of new music just made it a perfect step to come here to UrbanArias.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Anne Carolyn. Yeah. Yes, I want to hear more about the admin, from performance to admin, because I think so many people are at a crossroads and also wanting the direction. So we can talk about that.
Absolutely.
As well. Yes. Hi, Tiff. Congratulations. Tiff got a position at a school in North Carolina, I think, teaching voice. Dr. Jackson, honey. Get it right. But congratulations, Tiff. And yes, Greg says, welcome. And Amy back in the day. Yes. So to my next crew, my family, Cam and Dubois Akin, please tell the people.
Yeah, I mean, where do we start? Where do we start, Karen? It's so good to be here always. We're just such fanboys and girls of yours.
Absolutely.
And like, yeah, just absolutely love everything. So anyway, I'm Dubois Keene. I'm fortunate to be this woman's husband first and foremost. And then I'm also her baby daddy. So we got a child together.
Which helps for this piece, I guess.
Yeah, so anyway, we have a 1-year-old daughter who's incredible and perfect and amazing. 2 years old now. She just had a birthday. Crazy. So yeah, where do I start? So we're originally from Albany, Georgia. I, grew up singing, dancing, doing all the art things. Went to school initially for music. I thought I was going to be a Broadway singer star and doing that thing. Ended up falling in love with dance. Went to university, started training formally as a dancer at 19, got a job straight after that, and did touring and performing for about 5 or 6 years, and then started modeling, and then working in film and writing and producing, and then all that led to kind of where I am now, mostly working in film and television, writing, producing, directing, always choreographing. Movement is one of my first languages. My wife and I started a Kane brand in 2017. And so we're just like doing it, doing the things, loving life in New York and building and building with other creatives is a real passion. So that's Dubois.
Yeah. And
you're so used to him just running his mouth. That's what it is.
Yeah, I love it. I don't. That means it kind of clears it all. I can just say that I grew up with like in a healthcare like environment, family, and everything. Like my mom has 2 businesses in healthcare, so I'm pretty much submerged in that, and which means I didn't want to go that route when I entered the sciences. So I do research mostly. We started a Keen brand, like Dubois said, mainly once I moved to New York, because I just wanted to get a job somewhere, and the most available one was in fashion. So that's how I kind of got into the arts, and I was like on editorial shoots for different magazines, particularly, different magazines here and there. And that's where I kind of picked up the skills of like the creative directing and like learning color palettes and just all the things artful and fashion. I learned so everything to do with fashion, design, art making, managing also. But yeah, and then everything else that he said. Yes, we're married. We have a daughter. She just turned 2. She's amazing, brilliant. And I'm excited to be in opera. Like, I think it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I would love to talk to a little bit, get into that, because it's like the world of, you guys are in the arts, but opera is a whole completely, it's like all of the arts, of course, put together. But again, it still really is this kind of like separate from the rest of the world, which is, shouldn't be that way. Hopefully in this new world, we will be different, it'll be a whole different thing. But Bob, I want you to talk about how DW came how did it fall into your lap?
Sure. So I'm on Susan Kander's mailing list. She's the composer. And we'd talked about a couple of other things possibly doing. And I saw an e-blast for this piece and the performances that were scheduled in 2019 in, I think that's right, in Kansas City, when Roberta first sang it. And, I'm always looking for things that are short. I'm looking for things that, it's often useful for us to have a one-person show with a small ensemble to balance against if we want to do a bigger show. So I was intrigued for that reason too. And then most of all, I really want to tell timely American stories, and this seemed like it would be one. So I asked for materials, got it, and I really enjoyed that lullaby. That was the entry point for me. Yeah. That and the really very propulsive, rhythmic introduction to the piece. And so I was definitely hooked into this, and I thought, okay, I really want to do this. I had you in mind to sing the soprano, and one of the first things I had to do was make sure that that would be okay, right? Because I wasn't sure if Susan was pitching this and wanted Roberta to continue to sing it, so I had to make sure that was cool. And then the pandemic happened, so I thought of doing this live, and then I thought, well, this will be perfect on film too. Knowing of course that it was relevant, but not, anticipating exactly that it would be airing in this exact moment. But so yeah, that's how I came to discover it.
Yeah, I remember when you called me and or emailed me because we were on the same roster, and
right.
and again, DWB kind of popped up. It kept popping up, in various places, and when Roberta, was promoting it or whatever, and I listened to it and I go, okay, am I going to do this? Because the only thing in the piece is percussion and cello. And for those of us who are used to singing with full-scale orchestra and, or even not doing a whole lot of chamber music, Aaron Carolyn, you would know this as a singer, like you get a piece and then you get the score and he sends me the perusal score and there's like a vocal line, a cello line, and a percussion. And I'm like, holy.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're used to singing Puccini, where not only is there a nice harmonic chords around you, but your melody is like doubled in the orchestra at all times, to go from that, or from Mozart where it's very chords that you understand very innately, to go to something so abstract. I loved it. I sang a lot of new music in my career. I always joke that I started singing new music in college because that's where all the cute boys were. They're all the composers.
What school did you go to? That was not true where I went to school.
Oh, it was true at the University of Georgia. So I don't know what to tell you about that. But yeah, it is very challenging. But you did it. You're smart enough that you found the way, because it's there.
It's there. Yeah. I'm not, and I've done something, and I always say, that I never toot my own horn. I've done chamber music, and but again, I think it was because the piece is quite complex in its way and very tight. Right. The scenes and the vignettes are like right on top of each other. There's not a lot of time to breathe unless there are the interludes. She has a couple of interludes there. But I said, okay, let me go and read the script. And so I knew what it was about. And then after I thought about it, I said yes immediately. I don't even think we had to go back and forth. I was like, yes. But in my own personal, I was like, oh my God, but I did say, I would love to bring Dubois and Cam on, because I knew, well, again, in this moment, we are creating space, right? Predominantly white institutions are now making space for creators of color to come in and tell our own stories, which is important. It's timely, it's important. And particularly with a story like this, I knew after having worked with Dubois in Arizona, we did Yardbird, and he was brilliant in bringing the light. Interestingly enough, how a dancer could bring life into an opera in a way and tell the story that made it make sense to me, because that piece is quite complex in its own way as well. But I knew that Dubois and Cam were creators and directing team. So when I asked Bob to consider them, he was very open to that. And I want you guys to talk about the call. When I said to them, I said, just look at this piece, listen to it, because Roberta I think I sent you the original, her first performance of it in Kansas City. I said, just look at it, just listen to it, and tell me what you think.
Yeah. This is what Karen does, though. You do that. It's like, oh, here's this thing. Just look at it and just tell me what you think. And you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And then she lures you into her grip. And then you're like doing a thing. But yeah, she sent it and we listened. We watched it. I think we watched it immediately. Yeah. And then I always tell this story, but maybe you can tell it. But anyway, Cameron we initially watched it and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, it's interesting, one singer, 4 chairs.
And let her tell the story? You just said you would.
See, Bob, you missed
it. I was like...
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're so subtle. You're so subtle, Kelly. That's amazing.
It's like it's a breath. It's sometimes it's not even a breath. It's just like a shoulder drop or like a blink of an eye, and I'm like, okay, she wants me to keep going. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is marriage. That is a partnership right there. Like the unspoken.
What are you gonna do? We've been around each other for 10 years. It's
amazing.
Anyway, so shall I continue? Okay.
I'm just trying to look out for you, Camry. That's all.
Bob is like, we made an offering.
Now it's not my fight. Not for this.
Okay. But yeah, so anyway, we're watching it, we're listening to it, and I'm like, okay, one singer for 4 chairs, the instrumentalist, and I'm like, okay, this is peculiar to me. I'm intrigued, but I'm not convinced for sure. Mm-hmm. And then Camry is like,
we have to do this. Let's do this.
And she starts rolling off these ideas. She's like, oh, what about this and this woman here? And I'm seeing her like bedside, and I'm seeing her like maybe she's dreaming, maybe she's not. And I was like, okay. And she started to kind of unfold this kind of very entry-level vision for what it could potentially be, or who this woman was more so. It was really about who is this woman? And so that for me was the selling point, because I'm like, okay, initially I was like, are we even the right people to tell this story like in this way? But her being a Black mother, us having a child, obviously Kybella's not driving yet, but I have my own stories of being pulled over and, being harassed by the cops, the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So at some point it was like, okay, we have to. It was like an urgency, like, okay, we actually have to tell this story.
Yeah, and again, like, speak to the part imagining about the bedroom and like just how these scenes might play out. I'm thinking about just like how, honestly, I was thinking about my mom, like how she would, if she were thinking about these events that took place in her life at whatever point, like where would it go down? Like it usually goes down like, sorry, I'm using slang, but it would go down like in the bedroom, like after like the whole day is finished and you're just there to sit with your thoughts. And like whether it's with a journal or like you're at your computer, you have these thoughts alone with yourself, just recounting things that happen. And like, this is how it makes sense. This is how these series of like, because it does feel kind of choppy. It's not like, it's just different. It's just different like scenes or different like stories for however, like 5 minutes here and then here. And I'm like, when does that ever take place at one time? It's all in, for me, I was like, it's in your thoughts that these stories can take place all at once.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Bob, can you talk a little bit about that and reiterate how the scenes are set up? And I we don't all, of course, we don't want to give away the story because we want everybody, we don't want to give away the piece because we want everybody to see it tomorrow. But can you talk a little bit about the challenges of how the pieces were structured and how we worked through that?
Sure. So there's kind of two through lines going through the piece. Camry mentioned the mother and Dubois mentioned the mother, and that's the character. That's the one woman in the show that you see. In the original stage version, you also saw the 2 instrumentalists. In the film, you do not. This was all recorded previously, and they're not on screen. There was some planned interaction in the stage version between them, which we have excised. But in addition to be on stage with the mother at certain points, there are dancers. I will not say how many, okay? I won't spoil that. But so you see the mother go through the journey of taking the child home from the hospital and all of the other steps on the way towards her saying to her son, okay, now it's time for you to learn how to drive. Interspersed with this are a series of, I think, 8 or 10 vignettes that are specific, ripped from the headlines, instances of racial injustice, microaggressions, everything that, you guys have experienced. And just as she processes these things, from being mistaken as an employee at the pool because she's Black, to being called the wrong name, picking up her son from kindergarten because there are two mothers of color in the class, and they think all that kind of stuff. So she's negotiating her own life, bringing up her son by herself. Well, I won't spoil that part. Mm-hmm. But interspersed with all this other crap, and so, and that's how they chose to put this together. And what I think is really wonderful about the way Dubois and Camry decided to tackle this was it's sort of linear on her end, but it's constantly interrupted by this other stuff. And what we wound up coming up with was an idea to have it exist in her head that we don't know. And I think Dubois will speak about this much better than I, but wanting the audience to be asking questions as we walk through this woman's journey with her. What do you want the audience to be seeing and asking Dubois?
Yeah, beautifully put, Bob. Yeah, and even to another degree, it's like, is some of the questions we're asking is this in her head, or is this real life? Is this metaphor, or is this memory? So we don't even quite really answer that. Initially, we were like, okay, yeah, this is all in her head. But at some point, it's like, is this in her head or is this not? And I think that for us philosophically, that was about pushing or bringing to the forefront the reality of Blackness in America, the reality of being a Black person in this world that's plagued by racism and white supremacy. Often you're like having this internal dialogue with yourself when there is the microaggression or the crazy white person or whatever, and you're like, did they do what I think they just did? Like, did they really just touch my hair? Or did she really just call me somebody else's name? Like, this just happened on the awards show with the Oscars. Our brother won for Judas and the Messiah, and the lady mistaked Daniel for Leslie Odom. And she's like, I've been following the white reporter. She's like, I've been following your career, your entire career. I love him. I loved, how did it feel with Regina King directing you? And he's like, I'm sorry, what's the question? So
I don't work here, ma'am.
Wow.
Like, I'm not that Black guy. But anyway, so these things of like, man, is this really happening? You know what I mean? And the surreal nature of that. And so to Bob's point, what we wanted to do is raise that to the audience to say, do you see the irony? Like, is this crazy to you too? Like, asking them to be engaged in that questioning, in that ruffle, if you will. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
That's amazing. Because I remember when we first talked about that, and I was like, because again, we're going to my next point about the idea around telling stories of Black trauma, right? And telling stories, particularly in this time. It's not like 2 years ago, whatever, when we were telling those stories, but in this moment now, in this, we're driving while Black, we have seen it on, on TV and the outcomes of those things. And so last night during the talk that we had, the idea of that this is a love story, this is a Black love story, came up very, very faintly, briefly in a conversation. And I was like, okay, I need to lean more into when I speak about this piece, about the Black love part of this piece. And I would like the two women who are mothers on this panel to speak about that and association with this piece. Cam, you want to speak? You want to go first?
Yeah, Camry, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I think Black love. I guess Black love between who is my first question. Like, is it between her, the mother's husband, and because I often thought about that, like how she would talk to the son and say, well, like, you couldn't save him, and just that it seemed like there was so much emotion, not always pain, but just emotion to sum it all up between this trio, I guess, like, and I will say that for me, my feelings I don't know. I feel like it just really brought out the humanity of this woman. Like, I don't know, like she's coming home from the hospital. She's like, I want to see him. Just the angst almost, like between like really wanting to protect her family, her son, both her son. And I know we don't talk about her husband or her lover so much, but also her lover too. Like I felt that it was like double pain when it was pain, and double love when it was love. And that's why I felt like that emotion was, and it's you that's acting it. So when you were acting, it's like there's so much emotion there that it felt like, even just from watching you, that you were like drawing from that experience, and the experience of even imagining, like, it's not actually your son being maybe it is your son being stalked or antagonized by the police, but either way, you're feeling this this hurt, this pain, this emotion towards what's happening. To, I don't know, it's very universal too, because it's like you're not just talking about your son. It's all son. So
absolutely. Absolutely. And Caroline?
Yeah, I think the love story aspect of this piece, I think it was Whitney who mentioned that last night. The love story aspect is the universal part, right? Like, anyone who has ever loved a child will see themselves somewhere in this storyline, in this film, in this in the opera, and in your performance of it. So what I love about it is that it's like, oh, I see that, I recognize that, I have felt that feeling. And then at the very same moment, because I am not a Black mother or the mother of a Black son, I say, oh, I have never felt that. I will never feel that. And that awareness and that juxtaposition is of that love. You know, Camry's love for her daughter is as big as mine, you know, and that is huge. And you know, any mother's love for their child is huge. And the pain that you feel sending them out in the world is, you know, the world's a tough place, but it's a very different kind of tough place for Black boys than for my white, red-haired son. You know, like it's I have appreciated the things I've learned through this process, working on this film, and I hope that other people see that as well, find the commonality, but also recognize the difference, right? Like, we can't just say, oh, we're the same, I'm a mother too. That doesn't serve the growth and the change that needs to happen. So.
Absolutely. I think that way about when I saw Blue and Glimmerglass, which is another story. I mean, not similar to this in a way where this father is a police officer, you know, and the son gets murdered at a Black Lives Matter. Yeah. And so it's similar but different. But again, the idea of these stories and really leaning in heavily into the love part, which Amy talks about, you know, that we need more stories about Black love and Black joy. Absolutely. You know, so much about the Black experience is that it is a full spectrum. And you know, so often we only see one part, but you know, and I love when Dubois, he Bobby, look like you want to say something, but okay. But when Dubois posted the picture of me in my Manolo Sco moment, and with the red fabric, and that's a really emotional, intense scene, and that he captured, that's Sylvester who's on here, I think, captured the joy of that moment. I think I might have been playing around or doing something, whatever, and you posted something about within in the pain and in the trauma, there's always this joy. I always talk about the spiritual, like the spiritual is very much like that. Like, it never talks about revenge, it never talks about murdering or anything, but there is just another elevated level of like getting to the promised land. We get through this, and you know, and also the, you know, the very rhythmic spirituals. You know, they appear to be happy, but they're not. But again, like I loved that idea of like through the pain, through the trials, the joy is always
Yeah.
core.
Yeah, and to the, both everything y'all are saying is just like ding 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 ding. But it was one of the things that Bob and I talked about it. We talked about it with Ann Carolyn in the interview. We talked about it with you. We talked about it with each other. It was like, if we're going to take this project on, we have to humanize this woman, and we have to allow her to have a full range of emotion. It can't just be the sadness. It can't just be the pain of losing a son. It can't just be the fear and the terror of him going out into the world that's plagued in this way. It's like, how do we share and expose and unveil the tenderness of a Black mother toward her son, the I love you, the I'm gonna wake up every day and tell you how beautiful and how magnificent and how lovely you are, where the world is gonna tell you you're dangerous and you're a threat, and they're gonna look at you sideways. And so for us, and that's why we went so far with it. It's like it takes that much just to say I love you to a Black child. It takes all of that because of all that Black child, specifically that Black boy, is going to go into the world and face. And so, you know, Roberta asked a question the other day. She was like, well, why the costuming? Or, you know, what were you thinking about the costuming? And I think that for us, we wanted to show what we couldn't say in a way. You know what I mean? We wanted to find ways to express triumphant or transcendence where we might not have the language, because as we reframed the story, we could not touch the libretto. We couldn't go in and write text, you know what I mean? So we rewrote it as a screenplay, but that really looked like reframing it. But all the text is the same, all the music is the same, everything, you know, that they created is there. So we had to find other ways to tell the story we really wanted to tell, which was a story that was about this woman's glory and her turmoil, her triumphant state and her state of trauma and torture. You know what I mean? Like all of those things are working in tandem, and that is the state of Blackness. So yeah.
And can I say, I think that opera is the perfect vehicle to capture that. That all of those things can exist in the same moment, and the opera and the audience is like, they get to decide what's happening right now. Is time suspended? Are we in a dream? Is this you know, is this all in her head? How is she both crying on her couch and the most magnificent diva we've ever seen? How do they exist at the same time? That's opera. Like it's perfect.
That's me sometimes,
right?
Well, and how about you, Karen? I mean, you know, take these questions and I'd love to ask them of you. Like, how did you approach this? How did you feel about doing it? And how did you navigate this?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said last night, I kept, because so much is happening right now in the world and in this virtual world and this, I really was like, Bob, can we like do this next year? Rob's like, no, we're going to do it. And we're going to stick to schedule. But, it was hard for me. It was hard for me on many levels. It was hard for me to tell that story, not to relate to it, because I don't think I have to be a mother to relate to the love, that kind of love. I have a father. I had a mother. I have a husband who loves me. So to have a father that loves me so hard, sometimes I'm like, everyone who knows my dad understands what I'm saying about that. But the challenge outside of the music being complex was finding the arc, because of the vignettes, because of the things that go in and out, and how we produce the piece of like recording it first and then going away, and then coming back to it again. was tricky for me because you know how we do. We learn it, we go, we microwave it, we put it all on. It's three weeks. We have an opera. You know, we put it in the microwave and we press. If regional opera in America, you know, ladies and gentlemen, you know, we put it in, we get it all together, the ingredients, we put it in, and we put the time in, and we boom, we have this amazing brilliant thing. And it was this process was not like that. So that was, you know, it took me out of my groove as well. But emotionally, there were times where I was just like, I can't do this. I can't tell this story because I was just already going through my own stuff, you know, this period and being a little bit broken, but having to, as I built this platform, elevate other people and give other people a platform to heal. And I wasn't doing that myself. I was helping other people. So it was really, really stressful. I mean, really, really emotional for me to do this piece. But but when I went back and listened to it, I keep telling Bob, I was like, it's too pretty. Like it's, you know, I needed to do more things with it. But again, I wasn't even in a place to do that, Bob. Now that I go back and I look, I wasn't in the place to vocally go there, not because I was just, you know, had just learned it, but because emotionally, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it, and so it was it was a challenge for me. But I'm grateful for it because everything else after this piece that I've had to do has been easier.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And you sound magnificent in this.
Thank you. I went back to listen to it and again and again and watch it again. And I was like, yeah, I think I would like to get the opportunity to do it live, to find that arc and that layer that you're not able to do because of the film, how you know. And I think every singer that's doing film now, every artist, every company, every artist or conductor, producer, whatever that is going through the same thing of like, because we don't do film, we don't do the emotion and then stop and then do it 12 times.
Right. And you do all the scenes that take place in this room, and you know, at this angle, and now we're going to do all the scenes that take place in this room. Like that is so different from opera. And yeah, the idea of, in a way, the fact that this piece is so broken up with the vignettes and that sort of thing, it would be a challenging piece to find the arc for. And it's to do it straight, you know, from straight through to the double bar. But so in a way, breaking it up for filming might not have caused as much disruption as it would if you were doing a more traditional opera that you're used to singing straight through.
Right. But as I've been living with it, I've been like, putting on my director hat because somebody challenged me to like, why don't you should try to stage direct. I'm like, why? As if I need another damn job right now. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? But again, in these kind of instances where you can flex a little bit when you're doing the one woman show, you know, you can sort of kind of do that. But I would love to talk about producing opera in this time, and also the amazing, incredible crew that the Icon brand put together. So if Bob and Carolyn want to talk about producing opera and what the actual hell we're doing right now at this moment.
Do we know? I don't know. Do we know?
Do we even know?
We are figuring it out a week.
Well, we just had to pivot like everybody else did. We're all kind of doing the same thing. You know, we can't be live, so we have to be on screen. There are real joys to that. It's permanent. We'll get to, you know, it's not ephemeral like a real performance. Like what you were saying earlier, though, not being able to go all the way through something in a performance, each moment is the product of the last moment. And on and on and on for the, you know, 1.5 to 4.5 hours that opera might take. So you get this accumulation of glorious moments or mistakes that happen over the course of an evening. And of course, it's different for you guys because you don't do the whole thing. But for me in the pit the whole time, like I never leave. Right. So it's this body of energy that you're taking through the piece, and you're constantly trying to make it as wonderful as it can be, but also knowing that you cannot dwell in the moment that you've just left because there's the one and the one and the one. And you're also feeding off of a live energy behind you, for me, that is not present in film, although the people on the set would come out and watch. And you were talking about the crew. I'd love to hear Cameron Dubois talk about them. They were amazing. The costume design and the hair design and the makeup design were so exquisite. And they would come out and watch you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all family now, but I have to say, Dubois was like, I want you to have the best. I want you to feel beautiful. I want you to be a queen. So I'm going to give you these people. And when we go into an opera company, it's like, you have who's on staff, who the opera company hires, whatever. But I know that you were really intentional with keeping that elevate. But even from Jean-Paul and Sylvester, but please big up your team.
Yeah, I mean, truly, Camry, literally, she was like, if we're gonna do this project, we have to work with, and she started building out the art department. Yeah, you want to talk about the art department first, because they really
the art department. They're incredible. So
it was a dream team.
It was a dream team. These are people that I had worked with before, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, I worked with them all specifically in the fashion realm, like for magazine editorial things. So they're super used to fast paced and the glam. They're able to do the light makeup to the glam makeup, and man, they're just great. Like, so the first sealed person for our art department was Nikki Bosch. The way that I met her was through social media, and I just saw her work, and I was just like, we have to work. I want to work with you, and we were kind of thinking about this. We were thinking about this project. I don't know if it were picked up all the way, we hadn't signed like contracts or anything yet, but I was still like kind of like thinking about it. I was like, I think there's two projects that you could work on, but I just want to work with you. Like, we just need to work with you. And it was, so she was perfect. She was down, like she was super sweet. And you met Nikki, like she's so down to earth, super sweet. And that's the other thing about the department. Like, so we always had our kind of own section. So even when we would go back there, it was a vibe, right? Like, and so speaking of vibe, I'll talk about Q. Like, so Q was our is a hair person, and
I love you. That was awesome.
He's a hair magician. Like, I met him through like, I don't know, it escapes, but the way that I met him, I think initially was through a high esteemed person that I worked with before. He did her hair. He did her hair, and he then started doing my hair at one point. And his hands are, you guys, like,
he's different.
It's incredible. Like, and now he's so passionate about his work.
Oh yeah.
And that's the other thing about the art department, or about the whole dream team. Like, everyone was passionate about their one specific job.
Yeah.
So even when we were looking at playbacks of the scenes, we were like, it was so funny. Like, like if we were looking at a playback, for instance, Carly, our camera, our AC was like, "Oh, I'm looking good." I'm like, "Wait, you're in the scene?" Like, that's a freak out if someone from crew in the scene. She's like, "No, I set the scene right. I'm looking good," is what she's saying.
Oh, okay.
Then like the hair, like it's everyone was just passionate. Then there's makeup, and I met Jasmine when I first moved to New York, and I was like doing a lot of modeling then, and she was just so brilliant with her. She was brilliant. She made me feel so good, and the makeup that she did was so natural, but at the same time, she gave me a glam look, but it didn't look cakey, or I don't know. It was just perfect. Like, it was just perfect. And I don't know what to say. Like,
the other thing I'll add too, I'm interjecting.
I get excited about this.
Is that these people specialize in working with Black women.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that Camry was really intentional about. She was like, we have to have some. And the makeup artist, we secured makeup late in the game. But I mean, later than we might have wanted to, because we were trying to find it. It was like we had some options. It was this and that and this person, and these. but it was like it had to be a certain type of thing. And we reached out to Jasmine initially, and there was something about availability or whatever.
That was the last thing. So we reached out to her before for another film project, but I think the stars aligned perfectly with this.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, like that was the major thing, like getting artists who are passionate, not only just passionate, but very passionate and proficient about working on and with Black people and really seeing their beauty. That's one thing that I found out, like when moving to New York and even like just being in that fashion industry, like you have a lot of people who are good at things, but there's a gap in the beauty and fashion industry on catering to Black skin, Black hair, Black beauty. And it's like, and you can
that gap's in the opera world too, for sure. It's something that people are talking about a lot.
When your hair wasn't done by someone who knows either is Black or knows Black hair, you can tell. And that's one thing that, I mean, we couldn't have, you know. So
you looked flawless.
Your team was intentionally handpicked, and they were incredible.
They all understood the assignment, as the kids say. Yeah, and I'll just shortly shout out Sylvester Finch, whom you mentioned, our on-set photographer, stunning. John Paul Dea, our cinematographer, brilliant DP, primarily works in fashion. This was his first feature, and he just did incredible work. Almost, who was our AC producer, just all things. Almost is just love Almost Efrat. Also, Cole, our camera department, Cole, who's the gaffer, Carly Drebeck, our AC, Jack, who was our key grip. Is that everybody? Yeah, me, you, Paul,
the driver,
yeah, that was everybody. But the whole team was just brilliant, and shout out to all of them. So thank you all so much.
They were incredible, man.
Yeah,
bravo.
They were amazing. I was like, oh, when is the next time we can work together? Yeah, I want to talk about new skills.
Speaking of skills, I'm gonna pop out, put my kids to bed, and come on back.
Okay, all right.
You want to start with lip syncing?
Oh my God! Like,
so that's producing opera in the pandemic. Now we all have to learn how to make a movie and lip sync.
Yeah, and I thought I practiced. I was like, okay, I got this, until I got there, and I was like, wait a minute. But Bob was saying, because I was so close to the microphone, you could hear me breathing. And so it helped to know when to come in, like breathe and sing. But I don't know how much more I got in me of that. Like,
well, and you need a very sympathetic filmmaker and director that will cut away from your face if it isn't going, you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Or at least your mouth.
Almost was so impressed with your lip singing. He was like, so we would get ready to do a section. I remember day one, he was like, so how long you think we'll need? Like, you think she has the sound down? Like, I can't imagine that she would have it so down, because it's very like you just start singing out of thin air. You know, there's no music you in certain moments. And he's like, you think she got it? And I was like, I think she'll be fine. Like, and Bob is here, like he'll da. So we started, and you were so spot on with your lip singing. He literally looked over at me and was like, okay. I was like, yeah, we're gonna fly through this. It was incredible. It was incredible.
I was so nervous. But sometimes I needed Bob in the corner, like, and Bob was like, don't look at me. And I'd be like, and I'm like, okay.
Well, that's the thing. Right, because on film it's so obvious, and you can see on the video, like if my eyes go there, like what's he looking at? Is he looking at his phone? What's he doing? Like, is he shifting? And it's the camera immediately sees it.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like, there's so many things. You're like, oh, film is so different. I mean, I've done it before, like when I did for Color Girls or whatever. But it was a big space, Cobb Energy Center, big space, and I was being an opera singer. So it's totally different than actually embodying a real human, a real person, telling a real story that was theatrical, you know, for that moment. And so, but yeah, this time period, I mean, it's been all about learning new, new skills and new things. Like, so Bob, like, what do you think about, when you're going into like after pandemic, when we go back, you know, whatever that is, spring 22, whatever that is, like, what are you taking with you into this next season?
I don't want to lose anything that we've gained in terms of extra skills. I think that for a long time, video has been so important, and a lot of it for marketing. And so, you know, we've got equipment now, we've got skills, we've got all that stuff that we can put into that's going to make the stuff we put out just so much better. But also, I don't want artistically to lose what we've learned either. So our next season, we don't own our own space, so we will be digital in the fall, and then we're going to be in the theater in the spring. But we're also planning a new initiative with very short operas to be seen on your cell phone that is going to be digital again, because we feel like this is a really good medium, if done the right way, where we can get new viewers. And you have to have content that's going to be appealing to the demographic you're trying to reach. But we feel like not everyone's first step into the world of opera, if they don't know it, is going to be plunking down the price of a ticket and going and seeing it in person, right? That is too risky for some. So we want to bring them really good online content that isn't just snippets from stuff that we've done on the stage or scenes from rehearsal or any of those things, which are all useful. But if we can bring them actually content that's made for the medium, and that's what I've really been all about this year, is we can only do stuff if we're going to be on film. We have to do something that like has somebody like Dubois make a screenplay for it so that it actually makes sense in this medium.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh yeah. I'm so happy you said that, Bob. Yes, absolutely. Dubois, you want to talk about that, but also talk about this time period and what you're taking in?
Yeah. And then I want you to talk about embodiment and how movement for you, like how we used movement and what that process was like for you, because I think that could be interesting for singers and folks to consider and think about. But yeah, so I think both of us, maybe Cameron even more than me, love opera. I think opera is ripe for innovation. I think that opera is, so we did a couple projects with opera this year. We did Opera on Tap, which is an organization here in New York that work with young people. We did a project with them. We were preparing to do Yardbird again in New Orleans. And so I think for me, I'm really interested in inviting, supporting companies who are thinking similarly to Bob about how film, video, digital in general can enhance, can elevate, can frame the good work that they're already doing. And so I'm really interested in more collaborative projects like that. I also am really interested in new opera projects and being able to direct live works. Like you were talking about with DWB, like I would love to do an adaptation of the adaptation we did. Like flip the film on its head and do a live version of it with the dancers. And, you know, is there potential for costume change and all these things in an opera like this that helps kind of frame this story or other stories like that? So yeah, I'm super curious about more opera. You know, like dream job would be to like work with you and Terrence on something. You know, I'm just putting that into the universe. You know what I mean? Like things like that. I'm like, man, that would be incredible. And also to like bring more of our people into the opera space. Who would crush here? Like the Qs, the Nickys, the Sylvester, the Jasmines. Like they have to have them be in the opera space, and you know what I mean, and disrupt it in a really good way, I think.
Yeah, well, you already know. I said, yeah, I definitely want this group to go together again and do something else. And I definitely would love to do this piece. Maybe Bob can conduct it and we do it, you know. I
got an idea for your costume change. It'll happen when you're doing that vocalese that's really slow, but you will be frantically putting everything on backstage. And I'll be like, no, it needs to sound sweet. And you're like, but I'm doing it. I got my because that's about how much time you got.
I know. Well, I know. Right. That's when we press record because it still sounds like me.
Yeah, right.
Recording. I go off and then I come back magically, but no, I mean, the movement definitely, I mean, in this next piece that I'm, whatever it's going to be curating, creating, definitely I'm adding movement in the piece. And I also want to dance. Yeah. So I was like, I know I had to put a little silent because people don't know she can dance. Now.
You were moving. Listen, there's a section. I'm gonna give this away. There's a section in the work that Karen actually choreographed. We co-choreographed it.
Oh, well, I mean, I did dance in my day.
He witnessed it. It happened in real time.
Yep.
Listen, I danced in my day, but then I started getting a singer's body. I mean, breasts and behind and all this other stuff. And it was like, no. I walked into class one day and didn't look like everybody else. And I was like, you know what, Mom? I'm never going back. But I
see, someone has to be deconstructed. What is a dancing body?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, and that's why I'm so excited for people to see this work, because we tackled some of those things without even having to say it. Like, people are going to see the work and they're going to be invited into a new reality of what opera is, of what a dancing body looks like, of what, like, what is storytelling in this medium. And I think that's why this project was so special, because you were so open. I'm like, so yes, this is going to be like this, and I want you to do all this. And you're like, okay. And you're like, I'm like, oh, she's dancing.
The only thing I didn't do was Viola Davis, but that's the Viola Davis moment.
That's the next project.
That's the next. Oh Lord, that's the next one. No, exactly. But I mean, okay. So, what is your hope? What am I asking this question? We're having so much fun. We're just talking, but yeah, like what is? We talked about what the hope is for the next on the other side of this, and where this piece could go. But like, on Anne Carolyn's back.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you're back. We were having a lot of fun.
They were very cooperative. Yeah. What did I miss?
Perfect timing to talk about going into the other side of the table, administration.
Bravo.
So I just jump on in.
Jump in.
Well, yeah, it was the thing about administration. Everyone says, oh, maybe I'll go into administration. That means a million things. It doesn't necessarily mean running a company. It doesn't necessarily mean casting all the shows and thinking about what operas you want to do and making fun, like it's like playing paper dolls, but with operas. Like, how many people have like, oh, I want to do a season of all fairy tale operas. And then, then you get into the reality of like what it really means to work at an opera company. It's a lot more complicated than that. But people who are, if you think about going into administration, you have to just think about what part of opera you love the most. And, for some people, that will be the education aspect of opera, being in schools, or it'll be the whole new side of opera administration, community connection and relationship building, partnership. Or it will mean being the artistic administrator, casting person. For me, I had a very clear moment of, I was kind of straddling the fence between moving into fundraising, development, being an executive leader sort of role, or going the artistic route. And I was sitting in a theater on an opening night at a show at WNO, and I was just sitting there and thinking, everybody sounds so good. I'm so proud of everybody. And I was just like, it hit me that if I went into the artistic casting side of things, I would have to be like the judge. I would have to say, well, okay, she's singing really well now, but is she going to be singing well in 2 years when we want to do, XYZ? Or I don't know if he is going to make it through this show. Do we need to pull somebody in? Like, that is not my heart. Like I cannot do that. I'm the cheerleader on the side saying, you know, you're all amazing. Let's go team. But that aspect of like encouragement and positivity lends itself perfectly towards fundraising and getting people to come in and support the cool work that we're doing. So I just had to find the part of administration that worked for me. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize, that they have to think about it in that way if they want to move into administration.
Yeah, that's great advice. I don't think I've ever heard it like that at all. Yes, Sue says she's loving this conversation. Yeah. I've never heard it like that, but that's great advice. I'm always considering what the next thing is, because that's how we think, right? We think 3-5 years season wise, and I think about my future in this industry, you know, and what I'd like to see, what I'd like to be, you know, and it's definitely not teaching people how to sing their 5 arias for a competition. I think I have more to give to this industry than just that. And that's fine when people want to,
Do you teach?
I do. I can. I'm like low key a halfway decent teacher.
That's the same with me. I was like, my husband is an incredible technician and teacher. But I never really, I was never a technician as a singer. I was just like, just sing from your heart. And you know, that's not really that practical.
Yeah.
And someone's having vocal trouble and needs to build a skill. So yeah, teaching was never really my thing either.
Yeah. I'm the same way about coaching in a way these days. I'm like, I don't want to work on your audition arias. I don't. If you want to learn a role, I would love to do the whole role with you, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and you will stop singing when I give you the cue, because you'll be like, you sang that with such passion. I'm like, I know. But but seriously, like the aria thing, oh my God, so many years at San Francisco and Santa Fe. Woo, like there's only so much of that you can do. For me.
Yeah, it's true. Yes, Sue. I know my mentor, Arisha. Yes, I know it is. I know, but yeah, and I'm so happy that you said that, Bob and Aunt Carolyn, because people are so afraid to really, again, say the thing. You know, I don't want to actually be sitting at a piano all day, teach people scales and doing the thing, whatever. No, I don't want. I want to teach you to learn a full role. And whoever talks about that, that's what young singers should be talking about, is learning full role. You say you want to be an opera singer, well, you got to learn how to sing a whole role and make it through the night and to know what it is.
Make it through the musical rehearsal.
Yeah.
I mean, have we been there? I've been there. And I'm conducting it. I'm like, you can't even do this with the piano. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know?
I graduated from grad school. The only full role I sang in grad school was the Dew Fairy in Hansel and Gretel.
Wow.
Somehow I still went on to have a pretty good performing career after that, but didn't really learn, those kinds of things. And I mean, that's a whole other conversation about
it. Is it like that? It is another conversation. That's a whole other conversation. But is it like that, Dubois, as a dancer and as an artist in that side? Because listen, dancers come to it much earlier. They're like instrumentalists, where singers, particularly opera singers, you just don't develop until much later. But I when you sold me, I didn't know you retired from dancing. Can you talk a little bit about that and like how that happens, where all of a sudden you're like killing it, stealing the show, hello, and then like being like, I'm not dancing anymore?
You know what it is, Karen? If I'm gonna dance, somebody has to cut me a real nice check. So I'm retired right up until I'm not. I'm retired right up until they pay me my worth. So that's really what it is. But yeah, so and also I really find joy in choreographing. I really find joy in helping to tell the larger story, and working with dancers to kind of pull that out. But yeah, I'm not the best metric for what is the trajectory for a dancer. I started training formally at 19. Movement for me was always a part of my life, because I was going to be a singer. I was, doing musical theater. I was doing show choir. So, it was like, you're going to like 5, 6, 7, 8, all that jazz, So the movement was there. But in terms of like actual technique and training and those things. That's complicated. I shouldn't say that in that way, but kind of formal training, anatomy, kinesiology, those things. I didn't start until in university.
Wow.
But I will say that I was very, very fortunate to go to Florida State University, which is a conservatory within a university, is how they frame it. And so the training was very, very holistic. So we were learning about film, dance film my first semester. We were learning how to work Final Cut Pro. We were learning dance photography. We were learning kinesiology, so the somatic work, the science side, the technology side. We were learning the actual physical body stuff, performing all the things. We had to learn how to do, we had to do our stagehand hours and those things. So it was a really holistic kind of educational experience. And I think that prepared me and really propelled me into a career that has allowed me to be multifaceted and not just have to be a movement machine, which I think that a lot of programs do crank out movement machines, and folks who are kind of thinking big picture about like, well, what are all the different career paths I can take, to Ann Carolyn's point about maybe it's, admin, maybe it's more entrepreneurial. And for me, that was always a thing, like, well, I want to have autonomy, like I want to do my own thing. And so yeah, I don't know. I'm not the best metric in terms of what are dancers doing and how are they being prepared, because I started late. And yes, I'm retired, unless y'all want to cut that check.
Listen, you got to advocate for yourself, especially in this space, because you never know. All kinds of people watch this.
That's
and
you're international.
Absolutely.
Yeah, before we wrap it up, I wanted to talk a little bit about building a brand, taking your new skills that we talked about and how you can elevate them and make them work for the next level, and building your own company, Bob, and coming in, because I always like to leave the audience with something that they can take away in order to make them, better, be better, do better, feel better, pour into other people in a way. And I feel like you all are doing, incredible work and amazing things, and have done it coming from other parts. And I just want you to share, each of you, a little bit with the audience about how. And
how what?
But then you sort of did, but like, well, maybe you let somebody, Bob, you go first. And maybe
no, I don't want to go first. Dubois and Camry, you guys are the brand experts.
Bob, but you're also you've had your company the longest, so I think it'd be good for you to.
So I will conclude, please. Some grace for age.
Okay, well, let's do this in newbie order then.
In newbie order.
Okay.
So I'll go first. If I think I understand the question, it's about understanding what you bring to the table, right? In order to brand yourself, you have to know who you are, what you do better than anybody else. Like, that's a line we heard at our coachings all the time, right? Like, what do you sing better than any other soprano out there? That's what you sing. But to an extent, I think that is how you brand yourself. And kind of to my earlier point, what I do really well is support people and help and bring people together, and be the person in the room that says, we can do this crazy thing. And so I guess that's my brand. I'm trying it out. So far, so good. I think Bob hasn't kicked me out of the club yet.
She's excellent. Yeah.
And then that will grow, I guess, as I learn more about myself in this role. And then I will reevaluate my brand, who I am, what I bring to the table. So Cameron and Dubois are next in seniority.
I mean, I can just talk about, again, when we've had our company almost as long as we've had our marriage.
Almost,
Yeah. So for us, we always knew that we were going to build something together. Even when we were dating, we were like talking about doing conferences or all kinds of wild, crazy stuff. She comes from a heavy, I won't tell your story, but I'll just set the framework. She comes from a heavy entrepreneurial family. Like both of her parents like own multiple businesses and stuff. And I am like a dreamer, a visionary, and not to gas myself, but that's just how I think. Like I'm thinking like, how can we make a thing, how do you take the thing that is good and like amplify it, and I've been really fortunate to come alongside visionaries and really profound creatives and help them build whatever their thing was for the last like 15, 20 years. So I had a lot of practice of working with nonprofits and for-profits and different types of companies and seeing their company structures and thinking about how I might be able to build my own thing. So at the point that we got married, she has an entrepreneurial mind. I have a kind of visionary mind. So we come together and we say, we're going to do a King brand. I always say, study the greats. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of different models out there. LLC, 501c3, all the different models, LegalZoom, like there's resources. You can just go and Google the thing and really just get started, on a practical sense. But I would say what I offer as a point of interest, like a point of an entry point into what you might build is, what can you offer the marketplace? Like, what do people come to you about? How do you best serve people? I know that if someone tells me they have an idea, I can take that idea and tell them 15 different ways to do it. Because I can just help them brainstorm and vision. We can do vision boards and all the things. So that's always been a skill set of mine, and so that's something that we funneled through our King brand, consulting. That's some of our early work, consulting people who were doing things. Choreography, my trade is initially as a dancer choreographer. So I'm like, okay, we'll funnel that through our King brand. People can hire me as a part of this brand. And so then we started to have this kind of agency model where we were running the agency and we had the talent. We were the talent. You know what I mean? So that became kind of a model. There's a lot of different ways to get at it. But what I would say is that you have things that you can monetize, and you have skill set that people are looking for. You just have to kind of mine that. And also the final thing I would say is be clear about how you're building what you're building, and don't allow yourself to be boxed in by other kinds of organizational structures. When we first started our company, nobody knew what we were doing. We didn't even halfway knew what we were doing. We didn't know how to talk about it. People would be like, so what are y'all doing? We're like, well, we do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We work over here. We work with this person. It was all over the place. And over the next 2 years of having the company early on, we started to refine, adjust, change our languaging, rebrand, did a new website. And so it was progressive revelation. It was like, okay, you learn better, you do better. You learn better, you do better. And that's been the process. And now, we feel really clear about what we do, which is a King brand is a, production company, creative agency that primarily works in film, fashion, and dance. We do a lot of other things, but that's our niche. And that's what we do well. So, yeah. Hopefully there was something in there.
That was amazing. Bob?
Sure. So I agree with everything that both Anne Carolyn and Dubois and Camry said. It's all about all those things. And Karen, you're doing this too. I mean, you're creating your own brand with these combos right now, right? And you've done that in other ways as we've all sort of taken what the pandemic has given us and amplified what we can do and created some new stuff for ourselves. I think extremely key is I know gypsies, so I know you got to have a gimmick, right? And that's very, very, very important.
Only if you want to be a star. Only if you want to be a star.
Would you want to be anything else?
No.
So that for UrbanArias was exactly it. We have a gimmick. It is unique. You also want to be careful, I think, or not careful, just be really excited about the thing that you were doing that either, hopefully, no one else is doing it, or no one else is doing it well, and you can do it better, right? So lots of complaints about people don't want, there's no entry to opera. It's too long, it's in a foreign language, I don't get it, right? So what's the answer? Do it short, do it in English. Boom, nobody else was doing it. I had the idea, I thought this is a really good idea, and if I don't do it, I'm gonna regret this forever because somebody else will take it, right? So follow your passion and do that thing, make it different and unique, and don't but be true to the wellspring of your inspiration. And I think very similar to what Dubois was saying, don't let yourself be either stretched out into a bunch of things that aren't naturally your forte. Mm-hmm. You don't need to be everything to everybody. And also don't let the naysayers get you down. You go buy Nonprofits for Dummies and you just do it, right? So I did. And that's how you figure that out. And also extremely key for entrepreneurial people, hire good people. Yeah. It's easier to do this if you were coming to it already in your career. You know, if you already have 10 years as a choreographer, as a dancer, as a singer, as a whatever, and for me as a conductor, I knew a lot of people. And it's exactly what Dubois was saying and Camry was saying about the art department for this film. Karen, you're doing this too, and Carolyn did the same thing. It's like, use your network, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone will want to help you, especially if you're starting out and you've got a good idea. So it's not like calling in favors and being abusive about it. It's getting advice. I didn't know how to run an opera company, but I knew 10 people that did run big opera companies that I could call. And I did, right? And they will tell you a lot of things. You will get a lot of unsolicited advice, especially from people that are, if you're in the nonprofit world, from people that are donating, right? Just smile, Stay true to your vision. And there will be some good advice in there, not a lot, but some. Well, but yeah, have your gimmick and hire good people to do it.
Amazing. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. That's exactly what we all needed to hear. And so as we are wrapping up, please talk about tomorrow night. DWB. All right, go team, talk about it.
We got a movie and it's dropping tomorrow. And Carolyn is, we've got, if you buy a ticket, what's the deal? We're having a waist tie, black tie event.
Yes, so we can't have the red carpet, movie premiere that we would like to have for this. So the film tickets are on sale now at urbanarias.com/buy tickets, I think is what it is. And if you buy a ticket before 7:30 tomorrow night, we will send an invitation for what we are calling our waist high black tie premiere event. Oh, Dubois.
Thanks, Dubois.
Awesome.
We are encouraging people to come dressed from the waist up in what they would wear to a black tie event.
The alternate title for this event is also called?
Fancy Schmancy No Pantsy.
Because that was 2020, right? And we're still kind of there.
Yes, but to be fair, we opted not to use that line in the marketing for this event, for this piece in this time, because it did not seem to fit exactly what we're doing. We're going to talk. We're going to have some remarks, make some toasts, and it's just going to be a wonderful time. I'm so proud of this piece. I'm so proud. It's my first piece at UrbanArias, and I'm so proud of all of you for all the work you did. And we can't wait to celebrate. It will be available for streaming starting at 5:00 tomorrow. And we hope you love it.
Yes. Dubois, you want to say something?
I mean, I just will say that, it's a really powerful work. And Karen, thank you for bringing your full self, your ancestors, your heart, all of it to the table and leaving it all at the table and just being so generous as you always are. This work is not an easy work. It's not an easy subject matter. And you handled it with a lot of care. We tried to handle it with a lot of care and be tender. We're living in a tough time, and it's not a tough time because these things haven't been happening. Mm-hmm. It's a tough time because we're seeing them at a global scale. Mm-hmm. And so, we realize that, none of us had the perspective to know that when we were releasing this, that it would be so profoundly and unsettlingly timely. But if that this is what we do as artists, you know, Nina, someone said the responsibility is for us to reflect the times. And so we're really humbled and honored to be able to share this with you all in this time. And hopefully it gives you some solace. Hopefully it lifts you in some way. Hopefully it speaks to you. Yeah, share it. And yeah, let's keep the conversation going, because it's really to be a catalyst to keep the conversation going. And we really appreciate you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
It's been so wonderful to chat with you.
Oh, thank you all. Thank you, Bob, as my friend, Dubois, Cameron, and Carolyn, so much for coming on this platform and sharing, and thank you for the opportunity to create art in this time. UrbanArias, Bob Wood. I thank you all. And Sue, it is 5 Eastern Standard, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, Eastern Daylight technically, but
Exactly.
Who even knows?
Yes. Well, thank you all for coming. As you know, we share. I didn't ask you guys to share, but the video, but of course it goes on YouTube, stays on my page, and you know, people comment and they talk about it. So anyway, thank you all for coming. I think I'll see y'all next Thursday. I don't know, I have to look at my schedule and see, but I think I'll be, but anyway, tomorrow, forget about next Thursday. Tomorrow, join us for our premiere and our time. We're gonna be popping champagne because I'm gonna have some champagne.
Good.
Tomorrow. Yes. Anyway, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Guys, don't go anywhere. But good night. See you soon. Now.
Bye.
Bye.